major fire breaks out on a Navy ship in San Diego. COVID numbers continue to climb, and a wounded veteran gets turned away from a base commissary. I sense an apology coming. It's a new week on the briefing. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to The Briefing. I'm Andrea Scott. In our top story this week, a destructive fire erupted on Sunday on the amphibious assault ship Bonhomme Richard, injuring dozens and triggering a massive response from military firefighters. Close to 60 people were treated for smoke inhalation injuries, and the fire still burned well into Monday. For more on that story, we go to Defense News Naval Warfare reporter David Larder.
The Bonhomme Richard fire started on Sunday the 12th around 8:30 in the morning. They are still trying to determine exactly what caused it, but it appears to have been some kind of combustible material in the lower storage area right underneath the well deck. So we're talking about a big deck amphibious assault ship. You have the flight deck, you have the hangar where you keep the aircraft. Below it, you have the well deck. By 9 o'clock, they'd called the local fire department. By mid-morning, it's become pretty apparent to everyone that the fire on Bonhomme Richard is out of control, and it burns into the night, and in fact gets significantly worse overnight in terms of the damage to the ship. It started in the aft end below the well deck, and it migrated to amidships. The forward mast, where you have a bunch of radars and antennas, is completely keeled over, and it's resting on the superstructure. Overnight temperatures in the spaces, according to the Navy, reached in excess of 1,000 degrees. By Monday afternoon, it appeared that the fires on board had been at best contained to the point where the 1 million gallons of fuel that are still on board the ship were no longer threatened. They felt they had a pretty good buffer and that the fires had moved away from the danger area to igniting the fuel that's still on board. One of the real hazards when you're fighting a massive shipboard conflagration is all the gnarly stuff that's on board ships: paint, hazardous material, lagging, chemicals used for cleaning, all this junk that when it burns, you don't want to inhale it. The smoke from a burning Navy warship, it's a significant hazard. In excess of 60 sailors ended up being hospitalized briefly for minor injuries like smoke inhalation and heat exhaustion and things that just happen when you're in the middle of a pretty intense fire. So the problem that the Bonhomme Richard faced was twofold. They still had a lot of maintenance going on, which means that all the things that are done to make these ships survivable, and I think it's worth noting that these ships are designed to take damage. Engineers at Naval Sea Systems Command put a lot of thought into how a ship can take a licking and keep on ticking. They had all that compromised. They had hatches that were designed to be shut to contain fire and flooding, open because they had cables running through, or ventilation running through, or ductwork running through. And the things that would normally be there, like fixed systems that trigger when there's a fire to automatically damp down the flames right away, those weren't on. And of course, because it was a Sunday, there was only 160 sailors on board, which was about 1/10 of the crew. So what does this mean going forward? I think there's a real question about whether or not they're going to be able to save the ship, or whether there's been too much damage to make it economically viable to save it. The medium term, we're looking at other ships having to take Bonhomme Richard's place in the deployment schedule because they need these things for F-35 operations in the South China Sea. The F-35B flies off amphibious assault ships. That's the Marine Corps' version. It's a short takeoff, vertical landing version. It doesn't fly off aircraft carriers. So one of those ships going missing is going to have a big impact on F-35B operations.
Thanks, David. Now on to our other headlines for the week. More than 4,100 service members tested positive for coronavirus from July 1st through July 10th, a rise of about 33%. That is more than twice the rate of growth nationwide during the same period. There were 3 new Defense Department deaths, all civilians or contractors, during this period as well. Now, over to the Air Force. A newly released Accident Investigation Board report this week showed how loose parachute fabric and a gust of wind yanked a combat controller into a fatal fall. Air Force Staff Sergeant Cole Condiff was in the doorway of a Combat Talon II 1,000 feet above the Gulf of Mexico in November 2019, when an improperly configured parachute accidentally deployed, dragging the airman from the aircraft and ultimately to his death. A pair of tuck tab inserts, pieces of fabric meant to keep the parachute from accidentally deploying, were not inserted all the way into Condiff's chute. The report showed that the mistake that led to the airman's parachute being improperly configured was not uncommon in the Air Force Special Operations Command's 24th Special Operations Wing. Now, over to the Marine Corps. A Marine Raider from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, has been awarded a Silver Star after a 4-hour firefight that took place in Afghanistan in 2019. The Master Sergeant fought against more than a dozen Taliban fighters, engaging them with his rifle and hand grenades, and exposing himself to enemy fire multiple times in order to save an Afghan soldier. 3 Bronze Stars with Valor and 4 Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medals with Valor were also awarded Friday to Marines with heroic actions in the intense fight. Okay, out to Colorado. Authorities in Colorado Springs say no charges will be filed in the fatal April shooting of a 28-year-old soldier and Afghanistan vet. Staff Sergeant Virgil Thrope was killed after he pointed an AR-15 at authorities after they responded to a domestic disturbance call. A tense scene unfolded as some of Thrope's family attempted to escape the situation from a basement window with police's help. When Thrope approached and pointed his weapon, police shot him. And that's all the Military Times headlines we have this week. Back to you, Ben.
Now for a new segment here on The Briefing, After Action Review, where Military Times managing editor Howard Altman takes a look at recent events with people involved in the headlines. This week he sits down with Israel Del Toro about a recent incident where the decorated veteran was turned away from a base commissary. Take a look.
My name is Howard Altman, and this is the After Action Report. I'm here with retired Air Force Senior Master Sergeant Israel Del Toro. Israel, in 2005, December, was badly injured in an IED attack in Afghanistan. He was burned over 80% of his body, lost most of his fingers, yet he continued to come back. In 2010, he was the first airman to be fully disabled airman to re-enlist. He's won multiple medals from the War Games. In June, you were barred from the commissary at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. Tell me what happened.
I went through the BX, no problem. I didn't have a face mask. And then I got to the commissary, and they're like, sorry, sir, you can't come in. I'm like, why not? They're like, you need to wear a mask. And I'm like, well, I can't wear a mask.
Why can't you wear a mask? Tell me. Let's talk about that.
Well, not only based on my the ones I recommend with the ears. Obviously, I don't have ears. But the other thing, most people don't understand conditions of severely burnt people. We can't regulate our body temperature. So not only do I have inhalation burns where I can't breathe very well, it's already bad enough I'm over here at 7,000 feet above sea level, so it's even harder on me to breathe. So now you're trying to put a mask over me, and I've tried to wear like a bandana, and I just can't support it. I start having a real hard time breathing. I yank it off.
So what happened at the commissary? They didn't let you in?
No, they didn't. And I'm not gonna lie, that hurt a lot. For me, I thought to myself, I was like, man, I gave 22 plus years of my life to my branch and almost died for my country. And for them to say I couldn't come in just because I couldn't wear a mask, I was like, it sucked.
And what eventually happened, you got an apology, right?
First, the public affairs had sent this generic letter, almost throwing it back in my face like it was my fault that I should have contacted leadership. But later, the commander did reach out to me and apologize. And I had told him, I was like, sir, like I told the bank when they contacted me and apologized, I'm like, you guys have been 99.9% of the time awesome towards me. This was just a hiccup. You guys messed up. Did it hurt? Yes. But, you know, you owned up to it. You gave me a call and apologized. And for me, that was good enough.
Well, thank you so much, Israel Del Toro, for the After Action Report. This is Howard Altman, Managing Editor, Military Times.
That's all we have time for this week. Please visit us on militarytimes.com and our social pages on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And check us out on Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps Times.com for more news. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.